Hey everyone, and welcome to our 85th episode of Brew Talk with Mr.Beer. My name is Robert Lewis. I will once again be your host for today's show. As always, we appreciate you guys taking the time to tune in and watch all of our videos. If you want to reference any of our notes from this video or any of our past videos, this can be found on our website and on our blog page, mrbeer.com/blog. You can find all of our written notes in there, along with a bunch of other written blog posts going back a number of years. A lot of cool, fun information in there. So I got an interesting topic today that I thought I would discuss. I'm surprised I haven't discussed it before. So what we're going to discuss today is we're going to discuss the 5 benefits of brewing with hop malt extract, and then it's one major flaw or downfall for what we think it is. So obviously, brewing with any method, there's pros and cons. I mean, brewing with hop malt extract is a great way to brew, and I think it's one of the best ways in my somewhat biased but also unbiased opinion. So we thought it'd be good to break down the top 5 benefits for you guys, and then also what is the one drawback, so that way for people that are thinking about changing to all grain or that are wanting to get into home brewing and are unsure about what Mr.Beer is all about. Hopefully this will help. So the first one is brewing with malt extract saves time. So when you're brewing with hop malt extract, you're going to cut a large amount of time out of the brewing process. So you're going to take your brew day from anywhere that brewing from all grain, that would be 4 to 8 hours. You're going to cut that down to roughly 30 minutes to maybe an hour, maybe a touch longer, depending on what you're brewing. I mean, if you're brewing any of our standard refills, those are done pretty much start to finish in 30 minutes. If you're brewing one of our most or more advanced recipes, like we have some long hot boils that go like an hour, then you're looking at like an hour, hour and a half roughly. But the majority of the process is pretty quick, pretty easy. It just saves a lot of time. You're not going to lose any taste or flavor in your beer. You're just cutting back the time it takes on brewing. When you're brewing with hop malt extract, the mashing of the grains and the boiling of the hops and all that has already been done for you. So that's all done by Cooper's Brewery, our parent company. We have a previous video we did last year about how hop malt extract is made, so that might be a good reference to know what it's about. So you're kind of skipping that step in the brewing process, and that's where you're losing out the time. That's where you're losing out time, because that's a long process of boiling and transferring and steeping and all, and mashing, all kinds of different stuff that goes on in that process. So by taking that out, you're cutting tremendous time out of the brewing process. And then, like I mentioned with our recipes, if you still want to add in grains and hops and some of that extra ingredients like chocolate or fruit, whatever you want to do, you can still do that. Then use the HME as your base, and it's still going to cut down your brew day by a couple of hours, which is pretty awesome. Number 2, brewing with hop malt extract saves space. Especially when you brew with Mr.Beer. There are 5-gallon hop malt extracts equipment, or 5-gallon hop malt extracts. Cooper's is our parent company. We sell them on our website. That's a 5-gallon, a little bigger kit. But Mr.Beer is, 2 gallons. So I think it's a good size between not being too small like a gallon, not being too big like 5 gallons. So it fits in a lot of perfect places, which a lot of people like. And also, all you need to brew are basically your fermenter, which comes in your kit, your bottles, and then common kitchen items. So a can opener, whisk, measuring cup, and a bowl and a 4-quart pot, and that's it. So if you're doing other methods like brewing all grain, you're going to need a couple different buckets and transferring tubes and propane burners, and there's some other stuff that you'll need. So you have to store all that equipment, which can take up a lot of space, and it's a little bit more of additional investment in the beginning to buy all that equipment. It's usually a couple $100 or so, where Mr.Beer kit you get one for $50 roughly. Number 3 is you get more efficient brews. So it's not something we talk about a lot with hop malt extract, just because it's not a factor. But when you're brewing with all grain, one factor you have to worry about is how much efficiency you're going to get out of your brew. So to get a good efficiency, you need to hold your mash at an exact temperature with a specific amount of water for a specific amount of time. A lot of variables in there. If one of these is off, then you will not get the maximum efficiency that you normally would out of your brew. So you won't have the ABV won't be as high as you're hoping for, and some of those malty flavors might not be as present. And like I mentioned, with hop malt extract, we've already taken this step out of the brewing process for you, how our malts are made by Cooper's Brewery. So it's one less thing you got to worry about, and reduces a ton of variables that can mess up your brew day. So if you're mixing your ingredients thoroughly and getting as much of that syrup out of the can as possible, you're going to get the maximum efficiency for brewing with hop malt extract pretty easily. The 4th one is consistency. As I've mentioned, already, there's a lot of different variables brewing from like all grain brewing methods. Now in brewing with hop malt extract, you're pretty close to guaranteed to get a great beer every single time, as long as you're following the instructions and sanitizing everything properly and your temperatures are good. and you're pretty much good to go. We're removing all the boiling temps, boiling times, transferring, etc. So you're reducing those variables, which is reducing the risk that something can happen and go wrong and mess up your beer. Because I think that, one of the worst things that you can spend 6 hours brewing a batch of beer, and 4 weeks later you taste it and it's terrible. It's a waste of time. It's not fun at all. So like I said, with house malt extract, a lot of these variables have been already taken into account for you. So all you're really doing is just simply mixing it together, making sure you're sanitizing everything and making sure your temp is proper, and you're pretty much good to go to get a great beer just about every time. The fifth one is more, it's not really a thing, but it's a brewing encouragement. So I think, what I mentioned earlier is that, if you're going to spend $100, hundreds of dollars on equipment, you're going to spend 8 hours to brew a beer. You have all these variables, and something goes wrong, you get a bad beer. You could be discouraged about the home brewing industry, discouraged about home brewing in general, and just walk away from it all completely a little disappointed. But now with brewing with hop malt extract, you're pretty much always going to get a good beer every single time. So your first brewing experience is going to be really good to keep you, brewing well into the future, which is something that we always try to do here at Mr.Beer. Is we want everyone's brewing experience their first time and their 100th time brewing with Mr.Beer to be as good as it possibly can and produce the best beer that it possibly can. So I think that's one of the fifth benefit of brewing with house malt extract. So just to review the 5 before I dive into our drawback here, we have saves time, saves space, more efficient brews, consistency, and encouragement. So the one major drawback I think most home brewers will know, and maybe those who don't homebrew might not know, to brewing with house malt extract is the color of the beer. So beers with house malt extract always tend to be a little darker than they should be. And this is just a result from how it is made. So the wort is basically condensed in an evaporator, low temperature, to keep all the flavor and hops and all that stuff present. But it extracts the water, makes it dark syrup. And what this does is the syrup tends to darken slightly. So the effect of that is once you mix up and ferment it, if you're brewing, light beers like brewing lagers, IPAs, pilsners, they're going to be a touch darker than what they should be. If you're brewing, stouts and porters and stuff like that, you're not going to notice the difference because those are dark beers anyways. But it's just brewing those light beers. So if you're trying to get a beer that is really light golden color, you could have some difficulty getting that color right with house malt extract. But we have our classic American light is really light, the lager is light, the golden ale is a lighter color. Slightly, but those, I think the 4 lightest ones are the Pilsner, the lager, the classic American light, and the Canadian blonde are pretty light color beers for the most part. So if you're looking for something light, you want to go with those. But like I said, the one major downfall of brewing with HME is, of course, the color. But for all the benefits, all the time, money, all the stuff you're saving, the consistency you're getting, I still think brewing with HME is the best way to go in my somewhat biased but not unbiased opinion. So that's going to wrap it up, guys. I hope you enjoyed the video. Hope you learned something. If you did, please give it a like or a share or a comment. That would be truly awesome. We put different stuff on social media channels, so make sure you're following us on Facebook and Instagram, and on YouTube. You can find us at Mr. Beer on all those platforms. If you want to learn more about Mr. Beer, brewing with Mr. Beer, or just talk with other super Mr. Beer fanatics, or engage with the staff here at Mr. Beer, join our Facebook group, Mr. Beer's Brewing Society. Just go to Facebook, search Mr. Beer's Brewing Society. We ask that you answer 3 questions or we won't let you in. Please answer all 3 of them. They're very simple, straightforward questions. What you do, we will let you in. That's going to wrap it up for this week. Hope you guys are having a great holiday season so far. Make sure to check out the website. We got some awesome sales coming this weekend. We appreciate you guys, and I'll talk to you guys next week. Cheers.